Did you just throw your phone?
No, I did not throw the phone.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Beg Pardon. As always, I'm your host Anthony, joined by Carlos, and welcome to the show. So today we have an exciting show planned for you guys. We're actually going to dive into the history of amusement parks. Broadly speaking, amusement parks. They can kind of be drilled down to a little bit. I mean, until you get to like homecomings, county fairs, and we're not going to dive into like all the subsets of social entertainment in terms of like fairs and stuff, but more of like a broad overview of what amusement parks, just the culmination of them. How have you been?
I've been pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Little worried. There's
Why?
quite a few, looks like hurricanes off the coast and in the ocean.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So I'm kind of like, all right, now I'm getting a little worried. Like,
Yeah.
you can stop
We're
now.
pretty good in here. I mean, it takes for something to get into the Gulf. Usually, it's going to be pretty bad if it makes its way in there and survives, like getting into the Gulf.
Mhm.
But I mean, we have far less than like the coast, the Florida, North Carolina, Louisiana, or even Louisiana, Georgia does. I mean, you have to get kind of in the pocket to get
Yeah.
Texas. So yeah, it's terrible to see. I mean, today in Florida, they had like 4 or 5 months of rain in like 4 hours in like Tallahassee.
Yep.
That's what, like 3 hours from you?
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a weird time in Florida. Really weird.
That's all the time in Florida. So.
That's also fair.
Yeah. It's a weird
Yeah.
state.
Yeah. Although, with all the things going on, not a lot of Florida man stories. So,
No.
you're welcome, America.
No. Everyone's just focusing on Carol Baskins. You see that they aired a commercial. The family of him aired a commercial during her Dancing with the Stars thing.
Yeah. Side note,
Yeah.
I'm like, I think you're playing with fire there.
Side note, how's she not in prison? Right? How are you? Like, I want to be like you. Say you were involved. Say she was involved. You're living off the land, lady. So maybe not draw attention. I mean, you're really flirting with fire here.
Yeah, but instead she's doing cameos.
Right. The more.
Which also, I mean, the novelty of it I get, but who wants a cameo from her? Like,
I think it meant period. I was like, I'm pretty sure
no.
you would get right. I was like, I have a list of people that you would take a cameo from.
no, but I mean, like, who would want a cameo from her, like a private message, just to be like, "Hey, cool cat." Like, who wants that in their life? Who needs that?
And I figured, like, after the first like couple, they're probably not even like that. She was like, "It's Carol." And people were like, "Oh."
Or she's just like flips, like, "I'm not doing this anymore."
Yeah, I'm exhausted. Like, I wear this leopard print for you. You like it? Is that what you like to see? Like, I may be something sick like that. You're like,
like
oh my
a tiger
God.
tail. She's like swinging.
Right. Catch you later. Doesn't even shut off the phone. Just throws it. Like, it's still, the cameo's still going.
The camera's just like this.
Right. That's how little she cared. So amusement parks. I actually had now. This wasn't. The times of these were very disputed. So concrete date of like something that was documented and like, oh, this is what we would consider an amusement park was at the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago, and they had it was to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus like discovering the lands and right and they and they replicated like they created like this big pond or this big like rectangular body of water to replicate like his voyage, and that was like the theme. But that was like their first like amusement park at the World's Fair where they had like Ferris wheel and games, and they brought amusement for families to the actual event, to whereas before you wouldn't have those. I mean, you could argue even back at, because there's no governing body to say like, oh, this is what you need to have to be an amusement park. I mean, if you had a place where people can gather and that there was amusement, could be an amusement park. I mean, technically that's what you could say it was, and we talked about that previously in another episode back in like way back, whenever there was like like gladiators, where they would bring like men and women together. Normally they wouldn't socialize together, but it was a time where they could all be together and they could see, and it was just for entertainment. I mean, it would fall into that too. I don't know if they ate back then or if there were food stalls, but I'm sure there were. Maybe not and maybe not like fried Oreos or anything, but I'm sure there was some sort of like, I don't know, dirty cheese or something. I don't know.
Please stop. It sounds so good. I can't.
All right. I was going to say celery, and I was like, what a random item. I was like, no. But yeah, so
imagine that.
So 1893, in terms of here in the United States, I mean, in documented times, and then everyone started picking up after that because they're like, wow, these really draw people in. These are, it's fun for people. You got to remember, we're in a time before there was like any like TV or internet or anything that would keep us occupied and isolated away from our families. Ironically, the older I get, the more and more like sinister I feel like technology is, and I'm sure most people are like that. That's why my grandparents are like, rah. But the older I get, I'm like, this is the devil's work. I sound like what's her face off of The Water Boy, Kathy Bates, where she's like,
"'Cause little girls are the devil."
Yeah, like that's how I'm feeling. So back in the day, you just had like these events and stuff, and it was just cool. It was just nice.
What do you think happened to the World's Fair? Like, why did that become like the Olympics, where people still showcased everything at the World's Fair?
Wouldn't that be great?
I think it would be amazing. Like a week-long event, World's Fair, and you still showcase,
like where Tesla like shows like
I think we stopped being hopeful. I think that's why people were like, I don't care what the future holds
Well,
anymore.
we stopped being hopeful, and I think there was a time, especially back then, there was a time whenever there was like a collective desire to achieve greatness, collective globally.
Yeah.
And now it's so fragmented and so segmented, and like it became more of like, we're better than you, we're better than everyone else, we're better than not just the United States, everyone. Yeah. And like, this is my country, this is yours, stay out. Like, this is what we have access to, this is what we do.
Yeah, that's true.
And I mean, it was always kind of like that. I mean, there's been conflict over land and stuff since the beginning of time, but I think there was a more global effort to achieve success in the past.
I think it also plays into, like in the same sense, like you said, everyone was very much like, we're gonna do this here, like the space race. NASA
Correct.
did it there and everything.
Correct.
But now it's such like globalization that, I mean, everyone kind of has their hands in everyone's stuff. So like, yeah, we all have like phones here, but some of that's made in China, some of it's made here. Like, it's such a thing that it's not really a race anymore. The kind of races they have are not good races. It's all about like arms and everything. So maybe that's why. I mean, you don't want to go to the World's Fair showing off.
Could you imagine that? Yeah. Yeah. Military style. And people are like, this isn't. I feel uncomfortable here. You get like
Candy Expo.
You get like a funnel cake and like Kevlar. Like, as soon as you like walk in the door. This is in case one of the stray rounds hits one of your kids.
Yeah, like that's probably why they don't do it anymore. Because like, what are they going to showcase?
Yeah.
Maybe it's good they don't do it then. It's not as pure as it once was.
When we were hopeful, yeah. What, 5 minutes ago, we had hoped that they were bringing it back, but I guess
now
maybe
we were
they
like,
should. Yeah, it's a good thing it's gone. But yeah, so back in 1893, and then I'm sure there have been other ones like as we start creeping into the 1900s that some that even still function today.
Coney Island was one of them. Coney Island opened. There's debates Some people will say it's like 1880 something. Some people say it's early 1900s. But the rides themselves in Coney Island opened in like the 1920s. So like the Cyclone, which was like the first wooden roller coaster, still operates. Terrifying. But it was opened in the 1920s. Still going.
Oh.
I mean, Coney Island itself is still pretty much going. I mean, you heard last episode, for those of you who listened, I kind of dove into Coney Island and everything, but it was the crown jewel, basically, of amusement parks for a long time because there really wasn't much like it. I mean, later on, you would see, like, the Jersey Pier would do the same type of thing, like Jersey Shore. That pier would kind of do the same type of thing with, like, rides and things like that. California has something similar to it on their piers. It became like a boardwalk pier type of thing, where like if you had that pier, everyone was going to set up shop with arcades and games,
right. Maybe
a Ferris wheel. That was the original like bowling in a date type of thing. Like you went to the pier and you went on the Ferris wheel and all that. And I think it's always been people have wanted to push the boundary of adrenaline rushes, but in a safe way, because it always progressed with the time. So like the Ferris wheel, adrenaline rush. The Cyclone, adrenaline rush, but nothing was like Millennium Force in the 1930s.
Right, because it was right. They lacked the ability to do it.
Well, they lacked the ability, but also I doubt anybody would have went on it. They would have been like, "That's the devil's
what kind of future, right? What kind of future devil shit is this? I'm not getting on this ride."
Yeah, you're going down. I don't even know how high Millennium Force is, but almost at a 90-degree angle.
Yeah,
like
that was the tallest and fastest roller coaster in the world at
for a long time.
Yeah,
for a few years it was.
Yeah. Speaking of Cedar Point, and for those of you that listened to it, our Tuesday episode, I talked a little bit about it. Opened in 1870, so not long after that World's Fair, where they were like, you know what, let me buy this. It was like swampland that these guys bought, and they actually created like a railroad system and a system to get to like the islands out there. If any of you guys have been up to, what is that, northwestern Ohio or just northern Ohio?
Yeah, probably just northern Ohio, Sandusky area.
Yeah. I mean, they created like these pathways to get to the islands and stuff like that, just to like enjoy their time and stuff like that. And then they started building onto like the city and Sandusky and the pier. And then they're like, hey, let's just build a park here. Because people are responding so well to these amusement parks. And then they built the Hotel Breakers there, and it opened like 1905, like the early 1900s. Still open today. So there's like a whole ton of history there. And then they have like, I don't know how many, but like a decent handful of landmarks there that are like on the National Historic Registry of Places.
Wow. Because
it's so old. And kind of so cool. And then we were talking about roller coasters. I mean, there was a roller coaster that opened up in the either late 50s or early 60s. That's still running there today.
No thanks.
Yeah. So, I mean,
haven't touched it once.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you see these things catching on, right? You see these things at, like in Jersey, New York, on the coast, in Ohio. Like, you see all these things catching up, and then you're going to start seeing them implementing them into other things as well. Like the Mall of America basically has like an amusement park in it. Why? Because it's something fun and it draws people in other than shopping. Like, shopping is amusing usually for only one person in your party. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not everyone. Yeah. That's a very, weirdly enough, it's a very like polarizing activity where people are like, oh, well, I like this or I don't like this. But everyone can kind of get around amusement parks, whether it's theming them and them becoming theme parks, or exhilarating rides, or just the scenery or the food. Like, it's just it's an all I knew shouldn't have tried to say that word, but it's an all like covering. What is that called?
Yeah.
Whenever encompassing. Thank you. I was like encompassing. Encompassing activity, because it brings so many people in. Yeah. And weirdly too, I thought that there was going to be like a deeper, richer history to parks, and there's not. So no. I was shocked. So why'd we continue with our research and doing the episode period. Because, like you said, if you weren't listening to the last Tuesday episode, give it a listen. But it's all we have, so this is why we wanted to do it. But yeah, I think that, I don't know, it's common sense. That's why these things get added. I mean, you even see on a much smaller level, you have McDonald's, for Pete's sake, that have amusement themes. I mean, they have slides and ball pits and games and like any way that you can draw families into things, children into things. I mean, that's been the thing. Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know if that qualifies as an amusement park, but it brings in food and it brings in, I mean, all these games, all these.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Discovery Zone was like that.
Right. You bring in all these things and all these people are like, wow, this is something that I can do like on a regular basis. It's not like a one-time thing.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, theme parks are almost as old as amusement parks. But they were kind of born out of that same thing of, you know, let's take it one step further. So not only are we giving them this huge amusement park feel, let's make it feel like they're in a different world. And the first theme park was actually called Santaland. And when I heard about it, I was like, this is in my wheelhouse. So it opened in Santa Claus, Indiana in the late 1940s, early 1950s. And I didn't know there was a Santa Claus, Indiana, full disclosure.
Did not know that.
Anyone who's from there, hats off to you. That's a great town name. Good, strong name. But they also were saying that they were getting so many letters from kids thinking it was Santa Claus that they decided we should do something. So a gentleman actually purchased some land and built this whole theme, with an alpine village with a toy shop, and there were rides designed for kids, and you got to meet Santa on a daily basis, which I'm kind of like, how? Again, I don't think people thought that deeply into it back then.
Well, the kids didn't know. They could be like, we're going to the North Pole, and then they'd believe it, no matter how close it was. Side note, we used to go to a restaurant that was 7 miles from our house whenever I was a kid, and hell, I'd pack a bag. That's how long I felt like I was in the car. I think it's just being a kid. You're like, oh my God,
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
North
better
Pole
pack
is a lot like
up.
Indiana.
Yeah, it's an hour and 20-minute drive. That's a long time for a kid.
That's an eternity. I mean, Macy's used to do that back in New York. Macy's had a Santa Village in I think it was the third floor, the fourth floor, something like that, and the whole thing was changed. There was animatronics. And when I was a kid, you could have told me that we just stepped through a portal, and I was like, yeah, this is Santa's house. This is Santa Kingdom. I believed it. Hook, line, and sinker.
Well, my dad used to do Santa for his company, so I guess that's why we were always clearly yeah, I did not think that Santa Claus was. I mean, my grandma told me that he wasn't real, but I didn't think that he was real. If my dad unless Santa Claus is living in Ohio and smokes Marlboro menthols, or not Marlboro menthols, but Marlboro Reds, and drinks Crown Royal, then I guess this is Santa. Shout out, Dad. But yeah, I was like, this isn't a thing.
Yeah, well, they stayed that way for quite a while, but in the 80s, they actually went into more we got to corner the market. And they added Halloween and 4th of July, and then changed their name to Holiday World. So now they're Santa, we outgrew
Now it's
you.
garbage. Yeah, now it's garbage. Yeah.
Well, hang on. We still have some few good years here. The garbage comes in a second. The park added a water park, from everything I read. And again, this is everything we found. This isn't,
This
gospel.
isn't facts. Is that what,
well, it's not gospel.
None of what we're saying is true at all. None of this is true at all.
So
again, we tell you what the history is. Whether you're from here or not, this is what you guys tune in for. We tell you what's fact and what's fiction.
Yeah, if you live in Indiana and you're like, that didn't happen that year, give me
it did
5
now.
or 10. Yeah,
it
give me
now.
a 5-year buffer. But they added a water park called Splash and Safari in '93. Here's where the garbage kicks in. They added Thanksgiving to the main park in 2006.
Oh, come on!
I don't know what about Thanksgiving screamed theme park amusement. I don't know how you spin that story, I don't know what ride.
What do you mean? How do you spin that story? How do you spin that story? They spin that story for us. McGraw-Hill spins that story for us every year.
Correct, but I don't.
Again, what the forced shout out to McGraw-Hill, and not in a good way.
McGraw-Hill at this point, an invoice is coming. But like I'm talking about, like how do you spin in the sense of like a ride? Like how do you? Unless it's just decoration.
You ride turkeys, like the turkeys like in circles.
And do what?
Or huh?
And I was saying, do what in that turkey? Because
like you ride,
the turkey
like,
doesn't survive Thanksgiving, so
yeah, you like ride them around in a circle, or like they do like like a teacup, except they're turkeys, or like the I just imagine like the Ferris wheel is just like individual cranberries. There's always like cranberry sauce, like cranberry buckets, like going around, and then maybe that's where TGD 365 came from. You remember that restaurant, Thanksgiving Day 365 in Canton?
No.
Shout out to Canton. Man, I just keep on keeping on
with the shout
like,
outs. Yeah,
that's
URL.
It was like in this. It was like in a plaza next to the hotel that we worked at, and they serve Thanksgiving food 365 days a year.
Yeah, I do remember.
That's probably where that they were probably at that little park, and they're like, you know what would be great if they had turkey and stuffing every single day. So
it's like the food you can actually make on your own. What if we just themed it?
Oh,
Every
right.
day is Thanksgiving. Like it wasn't anything special.
And then make money off of it. Well, they did too. There's probably a crafting section at that amusement park where the kids got to make their own like smallpox blankets and stuff.
That's not where I thought you were going, but all right. But I mean, that was like the first real theme park, and they changed it to Holiday World again. I mean, good on them for adapting with the times.
No, I don't think I don't think that's good on them at all. Christmas is still bigger than all those holidays. Christmas is still bigger than all those holidays. I think that
100%.
Yeah, I think that if they would have really dug in their heels and pushed it further, like up the ante, like it would have been even better.
It would have been far better. Yeah, they could have been. Actually, yeah, you know what? Not good on you, because that could have been way better for Christmas.
It's 2020 now. Like Santa could be giving kids rides on Learjets, dropping off gifts, like little parachute things, and kids. You know how fun that would be. I mean, until they hit the ground, but shatter the toys. I mean, there's no way it's not practical at all.
It could have been like Tim Allen Santa Claus, like that kind of level of detail.
Yeah.
You know what, Santa Claus Land? You kind of dropped the ball, Santa Land. That's why we're going to move forward, and we're going to go to the granddaddy of them all, opened in 1955 with Disneyland.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
And Disneyland, I think, is kind of what set the bar to be like, welcome to the show, boys and girls, because it never looked back. Whether you love Disney or you hate it, you cannot deny how innovative it was and how just like the charisma that Walt Disney himself had to pull that off. I mean, this is a guy who, you know, he sat on the bench and he wanted to do something with his daughters, not just watch them on a carousel.
Right.
And there wasn't anything like that for him. So he was like, you know what, I'm going to do it myself. Like, that's not like your dad built your treehouse in the back. This is like your dad built an entire escape for you and your family. Like, that's dad of the century, right?
Keeping
there.
up with the Joneses.
Yeah, like
demolishing the Joneses. The Joneses. Joneses. What is wrong with me?
But even that, I mean, he took so much care and research and detail into that. I mean, he worked out a deal with ABC to kind of do this.
What was he before? What was he before this?
Before that, he was an animator. He did
with what? Like what company? Like big companies? Oh no, he had his own company. Mm-hmm. Okay, because I was like, clearly this. I was like, I don't know the background on Walt Disney, but I was like, clearly this man had like the economic resources, the political resources, the social resources to be able to execute something of this size.
Well, he kind of did. Quick backstory of him. He started, I believe it was called Laugh-O-Grams, was the original company before it became like Disney and all that. And a lot of those animators from Laugh-O-Grams were taken by, I want to say it was the gentleman who did Felix the Cat. he pulled a lot of his animators because Walt couldn't pay them because they weren't making the money because copyright things like that. And those people went on to do Looney Tunes. So that's where Looney Tunes came from, was a lot of those animators. Gotcha. But Walt had lost the rights to Oswald, the Lucky Rabbit, which in turn kind of made him desperate. That's how he came about with Mickey, was out of that desperation. And that's kind of how copyright got into place, because Mickey was then copyrighted. And, I mean, the rest is history. He didn't want to lose another character of his. But by the time Disneyland opened, he already had, like, Snow White under his belt, which was a huge accomplishment in cinema.
Oh, what, in the 30s?
Yeah, I want to say it was 38.
Yeah.
He already had, I believe, Bambi under his belt. I want to say Pinocchio was also under his belt at that time. So he had a couple of movies that kind of kicked up. But with Disneyland, he kind of worked out that deal that ABC Studios would kind of help fund his project if he did this special for them. And in the special, he kind of showed you what the park was going to be, and it was really like you felt like he was in your living room with you. It was like an FDR fireside chat. Like you felt like he was there with you. And when it finally opened, the grand opening, it was like a record-breaking thing for live broadcasting back then, because everyone wanted to see Disneyland. And at what point, you know, do you think back to amusement parks and say, like, okay, either we keep this for like the crown jewel that they are, or do you shut them down, or do you do you build them up,
or do you do what Cedar Point did and like swallow them up and force them to shut down?
Cedar Point is the equivalent of like
Walmart.
Yeah, where they kind of looked at your amusement park. If you were anywhere within the Midwest, and they were just like, shame if something happens to that park, and then, like, and then they stole your roller coasters, Geauga Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was huge. That was a SeaWorld and a Six Flags, I think.
Yeah, we had that little in memoriam in that one episode.
Yeah, it was massive.
Geauga Lake, yeah.
And
I went there as a kid. And Cedar Point, and Cedar Point was like, yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame everyone loved going over to see ya. Put her in the home. Put her in the home. Yeah. That's so sick. That's like, yeah, sorry you guys can't see your grandma anymore, but we took all of her clothes. If you want to smell her clothes, we have them in our house. Like, that's the equivalent of that. Like, if you missed your grandma, we have all of her stuff.
Yeah, her chair's over there if you want to go one more time.
That tea set. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to rock in that chair one more time, sing you a lullaby. It's in the park.
Well, like, even, which I thought was weird, and we talked about it briefly, Six Flags went from a theme park to an amusement park because it quickly lost the theme. I don't know what the hell Six Flags is now.
Well, I think that it struggled. Like, there was just so much struggle and so much. But it's harder, I think, to execute like a theme park, a legitimate theme park, than it is an amusement park. I mean, like we said, there's no governing body for any of this, so you just have to have a place where people have fun, and then you're like, look, I made a theme park, and like, and usually they're permanent structures. I should say that too. They're like permanent, like whereas like fairs are in temporary spaces. But like, I think Six Flags was just like, you know, it's just too. Like, it's too much. We don't want to. We were just kidding. We didn't really want to do that. But the Six Flags in Fiesta, Texas, I do want to go to. It's like 2 hours from me. I think I do want to go just to see it and just to see like experience what it's like. I'll report back on the show.
I was gonna say do it
post COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe like right now, see how many people are there. See if it's open even.
Yeah. Cedar Point's open.
As I said, some of the parks.
Disney's open.
Disney's open. Universal's open. Maybe now's a better time. There's less people.
Yeah.
I don't know. Don't put your health at risk, though, is what I'm saying. But Six Flags itself, I said that after I said go. Six Flags itself, like the original Six Flags name was supposed to be Texas History. I can kind of see why this didn't stick.
Yeah.
Again, according to this website, it was made by Angus Wynn Jr. and opened in Arlington in the early 60s. And the Six Flags were supposed to represent the culture including France, Spain, Mexico, the Confederacy, the constantly evolving American culture, and Texas itself. Those were supposed to be the 6 pillars. I can kind of see how that was like, it died.
Oh, it fell apart, yeah.
Yeah. But in its place, and also like we talked about copyright, I think IPs became such a harder thing to obtain. Like, it became so expensive because these characters became...
Well, let's say financially it became impossible to obtain.
These characters became, I mean, staples for people. Like, you weren't going to get Mickey, obviously, because of Disney, but they got Looney Tunes. Bugs is arguably second most popular cartoon character. So, I mean, Bugs Bunny is a big deal. Then they got DC characters. Disney has Marvel, but it's weird because the DC rides are like DC in name only. There really isn't a theme. It's just like the Batman roller coaster. But there's nothing really that's like...
Yeah, there's no theme to the ride itself. It's just a roller coaster.
Yeah, like, so you're just like, okay, I guess.
I just imagine that, like, they're trying to entice you in with that, and then it's like this rickety old coaster with like this middle-aged bald guy with a cigar in his mouth and like a white tank top on, and he's like, just hold the lap bars down. They don't latch back.
You're probably not that far off, because the last
Right.
time I went to Six Flags, I was like, this is all a death trap. Every single ride in here is a death trap.
Yep.
And every time there's an accident that you hear about at theme parks, I'm always like, it was a Six Flags. Usually it was a Six Flags. They had that weird roller coaster. Remember the Superman that you like laid on your stomach?
No.
And yeah, it the harness like clicked this way.
Did people
and
fall off?
And you laid on your stomach.
Shocking.
And it was like the Raptor, but you were like this on your stomach. So it was like you're supposed to be flying. And people, like, they said they banged their hands, or the thing would come loose, and like they would almost slip out. Like, there was a whole bunch of horror stories on the Superman. And then they changed it. But I was like, at what point did none of you really test this to say, in theory, this would be really cool, but maybe we shouldn't do that.
Right.
Six Flags did it. Six Flags just like, put a Band-Aid on it, it's fine. And Six Flags is like Action Park in New Jersey. For all of you who are from New Jersey or anything, they're doing like a documentary even on Action Park, because Action Park had like so many things. I mean, there were people who, the whole premise of Action Park was you choose your own adventure. And there was literally, it's not funny, but it's funny. There was a roller coaster like of concrete, like a tunnel, like a slide with concrete. And there was a brake on the thing, so you can go as fast as you wanted or as slow as you wanted. But some of them, the brake broke. So people were just like slamming at the end of the ride, like into the bumper.
Oh. Yeah.
Or the brake was stuck. So you were just like going down so slow, and the one behind you had no brake. So they would just like slam into you. And then Action Park also was, like, I think, one of the first places that had like a tidal pool. And the lifeguards were saying that they were saving up to 30 people a day in that tidal pool. Like, 30 people a day.
Tidal pools are terrible.
I like them.
No, I don't like them. I don't trust them.
I mean, don't get that close to the machine, I would say. That's my advice.
Yeah, get sucked
And be a
in.
strong swimmer. Yeah, be a strong swimmer, too. That's my other advice. If you don't know how to swim, don't go in a tidal pool, because it's like
It's
a mosh
tougher
pit.
than what you think it is, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like a mosh pit of a water park, because everyone and their mother's in that tidal pool. And all it takes is for you to get smacked by a wave one time, listening to We Will Rock You by Queen, and you're done. Like,
Yep.
Next thing you know, the lifeguard's dragging you out, and he's like, number 25 today, Janet. Like,
Yeah. To illustrate this for you guys, enjoy the next couple seconds. There's going to be a montage of tidal pools and people flailing in tidal pools. So enjoy. And now you see, this is why I hate tidal pools. I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one, clearly. They're
yeah,
disastrous.
absolutely. And then, again, like, you know, you have things like Universal that did tours and stuff, but Universal and Disney are so similar that, I mean, they're basically, one's more adrenaline than the other. So,
Yeah.
if you've been to one, you've kind of been to both.
And a little bit less themed, though. I think that Disney's more themed.
Less pride in the theme, I'd say. Well, not pride in the theme, but less...
Right. I was like, all right.
Yeah. Again, we go back to The Simpsons we talked about. You really burned me on that, Universal.
Yeah. But we want to hear from you guys. If you like theme parks, if you don't like theme parks, if you like these Hall of History episodes, if you don't like these Hall of History episodes, yeah, let us know. As always, all of our links to all of our social media accounts are going to be in the description box below. So thank you guys so much for tuning in.
And make sure you like and subscribe our video as well. That way you can subscribe to the channel. You know
Yes.
when we have videos coming. But that will do it for us on this Hall of History amusement parks. I hope you were amused. Please keep listening. Laugh at my joke, please. Don't hate me. As always, he's been Anthony. I've been Carlos. Remember, sometimes it just takes a little faith, trust, and, well, you know the rest.
Duct tape.
Until next time.
Bye.